All right. Sure. Yep. Good evening, everybody. We're getting the PowerPoint up here. It'll be just a second. While we're getting that done, Todd, would you mind leading us in an opening prayer? And Willie, do you mind getting the microphone over to Todd? Can you get the microphone to Todd here? He's going to lead us in an opening prayer.
Let's pray. Our good Father, we are grateful for this day and the opportunity to be here this evening. And we pray for your wisdom as we study this book and the wisdom that you reveal to us through it. And give us hearts that are open and soft and willing to learn and willing to change. And we thank you for your grace that reveals it to us. You want us, and you want us in a relationship with you. We thank you for your great patience and great loving kindness with us. Pray you be with Bill tonight, that his study will help him teach us. He will reveal to us and help us understand what you've given to us here. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Todd. All right, so this is the class on Ecclesiastes. If you're visiting and you were hoping to be in, let's see if I can do this right. There we go. If you're hoping to be in the church history class, you're not in the right one. That's over there. Also, the God's Ambassadors class is over there, and college class is back here. So this is on Ecclesiastes, and we're covering chapter 2. So we started this on Sunday evening. So I'm going to flip through here, pardon me for a second, and we're going to do a very fast review. Okay, so lesson 1 can be summed up in these photos, and it is, can someone tell me what the point of all of this is? That's really what Ecclesiastes is about, right? We're running in a hamster wheel, and we don't see where we're getting to. The treats aren't anywhere in sight. We're just sweating. And then the big question that we asked last time, what place does Ecclesiastes have in our arsenal of faith? And the answer is, it really helps us to see that truly, when you search everything out for a purpose, you'll find there absolutely is none outside of a relationship with God. If we have time at the end of this class, what I'd like to do is listen to 2 audio clips, or they're video clips from YouTube. One is Sam Harris, who is a young, very charismatic atheist, very astute college professor, I believe, explain the purpose of life. And also, another clip, both of these are about 2.5 minutes. Another clip is Richard Dawkins, an old, very antagonistic, he seems kind of sweet in this video, but don't let that deceive you. He's a pretty nasty guy. Explain to a group of young people, that's why he's acting sweet, about the purpose of life. And I want to show those if we have time, because I want us to look at that and say, how can we use what Solomon is doing here in Ecclesiastes to answer these kind of propositions about what life is all about? So, let's get on to the lesson here. Recap, man's quest for pleasure, meaning through pleasure, where Solomon says, I said in my heart, come, I will test you with pleasure, enjoy yourself. So we left off with our lesson book. I believe it's page 11, question number 4. So what are many of the ways we might seek to find happiness? So Solomon tried 9. So maybe help me out with the kind of ways, the pursuits Solomon had that he explains in this chapter to find happiness, and what are some parallels that we do? Okay? Can I get some help on that and what you guys, your thoughts are? Okay.
Home improvement.
Okay. Home improvement's a big one.
Yeah.
If you look in, I mean, this is park and recreations extraordinaire. I mean, Solomon is leveling mountains. He is planting orchards. He's planting forest. And he has, on portions of mountains that he hasn't leveled yet, he makes big pools of water that can automatically go down and irrigate all the trees he just planted. It's amazing. I would probably venture to say he would be probably a step above the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, which is one of the great wonders of the ancient world, if we were to see all that Solomon did. He really pursued a lot. Some other things that he did, and by the way, obviously, we can find people doing that today. Todd brought up an example of the Biltmore Estate. If you guys get a chance to go to Asheville, North Carolina, if you've not been, and you get a chance to go to the Biltmore, it is absolutely astounding. This is George Vanderbilt's grandson, who had the least portion of his family's inheritance, by the way, and he had, I don't know how many thousands of acres he purchased in Asheville. It was over 100,000. Now it's a significantly lower. They gave most of it to the government. But he did this incredible mansion that he couldn't even finish before he died. But it's an astounding place. Anything else? Okay, accumulation of wealth. Do any of us get caught up in that? How's your 401k doing? I'm not saying, is wealth bad? Okay. Well, I guess we don't have to worry about that then. Yeah. So, yeah, accumulation of wealth is a big thing. Wealth is not a bad thing, but finding your meaning in life solely through wealth is a very bad thing. And it's an empty thing. Some other things, some other ways. Entertainment. That's a big one Solomon had. He had male and female singers, males and female servants to come, and I'm sure he had big parties, and he had to have all these people serve everybody, had to keep this machine running. He was entertained through and through. He said if he saw a pleasure, anything he thought was entertaining, he didn't stop it. He didn't deny himself that. And who here has heard of binge-watching shows? Who here has binge-watched a show? Yeah. We are an entertainment-saturated society. And we have to be really careful as Christians that entertainment's not saturating us. And I'm not standing here as if I've got it all down. I have to watch that. There are times, especially on vacation, you're like, let's just watch. Let's watch some more. Well, that was really good. Let's watch another. And before you know it, you waste away several hours. Harley?
Good example of that is video games. You watch a video game, you just start to like it. Next thing you know, it's got a lock on your brain. You can't let go of the thing.
Okay, video games. Stuff's very addictive. That's something we need to help our young people especially with, to resist. Okay, there were other things he did. Wine. He did drinking. Who here has been offered to go to parties from people from work? I mean, I've been offered that. People say, hey, let's go to the bar. Let's go ahead and get a few drinks. Let's go do this. Let's just have fun. And they almost look at you like you have a third eye in your head if you say, I don't drink, and yeah, I'm going to go hang out with people we're not going to drink, and we're going to have a really good time. They're like, something doesn't register in their minds. Like, how can you do that? I remember in college, I invited some people who were not Christians to sit with my Christian friends, and they were truly shocked that they could have a really good time without alcohol. And they said, wow, this was a lot of fun. I didn't know this could be done. So, but that Solomon didn't withhold that from himself. Now, he didn't get plastered, he says. He kept his wits about him. He had lots of concubines, sexual pleasures. Didn't withhold him anything. I mean, the guy had over 900 wives, or 900 women plus concubines and wives. He didn't resist any lures there. So there's a lot of things that we can see that we can get absorbed in, and we know our culture gets absorbed in. So first off, we as Christians need to not get absorbed in that. But outside of Solomon's answer that these things are vanity, in other words, I tried to find a purpose of life in any of these things, and it wasn't the pursuit of pleasure. Outside of it being vain, are there any other dangers to absorbing ourselves in these pursuits?
You can get stuck.
Okay.
What impresses me about Solomon is that at least the guy's honest in verse 11. He doesn't try to say, well, I still got a couple aces to hold. I still got a hand to play. I'm not done yet. A lot of people will try to
Okay.
A lot of people don't allow themselves to get there. They keep running the experiment until they die.
Okay. So big danger, we can get stuck. We can have a mental block and say, well, the sexual fulfillment just wasn't there because I had the wrong person. Let me dump this one. Let me go to the next model. I remember reading an article. I like Billy Joel's music a bit. And an article was written about him that he's just a romantic at heart. And he said, yeah, he's still trying to find the right relationship. I think he's had on his 6th marriage or something. He just hasn't found the right one yet. You know, just pursuing the next thing. Charlie.
Just a quick comment on that. I think you said, sometimes we can get blocked, or sometimes we can get trapped in that. And my thought was based on the comment just before that those are Satan's lies. A lot of times I think it's all on me. It's just me fighting against myself, when in reality, I do have my own pleasures, but Satan is using those and using the lies to keep me trapped there. Instead of looking at the truth, like I think is what Solomon was doing, and writing here for us, and I can say, okay, this is how I'm feeling. These are the lies Satan is telling me, and this is actually the truth. And being able to move beyond that trap,
Right.
To the freedom of seek God, and keep His commandments. So,
Very good. I think the reason I wanted to delve into that a little bit more was exactly for the reason you brought up, Charlie, that I think the big danger here is not simply that you waste your time trying to find purpose in life in pleasure. I wish that were the end of the story. I wish that were the negative result. The only negative result is I wasted a few days, a few years. But the truth is, the real negative result is it's just like a person who has gangrene and says, get me another Band-Aid, please. And every day they're replacing patches on their arm so that they don't have to look at the disease and see how it's spreading. That Band-Aid's doing nothing except actually harming them. It's not just vain. It's actually destructive because the disease is rotting us from the inside out. So Satan is trying to get us stuck. He's trying to lure us with the lust of the eyes, with these pleasures, so that in the end, we can't find the cure. We're his, and we're not God's anymore. So that's one of the big dangers of this. This is not just a... I wish it were simply a waste, but it's not. Todd.
And maybe that's part of what Solomon's getting to. A couple phrases in the chapter. Verse 17, I hated life because the work under the sun was distressing to me. So that's an emotional despair that at some point you realize this is a wreck. You tried to cover the Band-Aid perhaps, and then you realize this is a mess. So it can lead us to the point, okay, rats, it was useless all this time. But that can lead us into an emotional place that really undermines our faith in a much more powerful way. And
Yes.
it's really dangerous. The opposite could be true. Back in verse 9, he says, I became great and excelled. So it can be, we pursue these things, and they're vain, but it leads us now to be prideful in a way. Either way, Satan gets us in a way. So the
Right.
vanity is sort of an avenue to something worse. And that's,
Yes.
So which you pointed out. And maybe that's partly what he's getting at in those kinds of verses.
Very good. Very good. Well, let's go to the next thing here. How many of us have played the what if only game? The what if game. If only I was better looking, if only I had a bigger house, had more money, if only this little piece of my life were put in order, then things would be just right. And this is kind of what Solomon's playing. Not only is he pursuing pleasure, but he's thinking, but if I used my wisdom to build the best, then I would find good purpose. Oh, if I just used my wealth to do this, then things would be great. Harley?
What results in that is like even things that we're doing in our own lives. You try to build something and you say, well, maybe if I had a little bit more, you have to reach a point of, like I said, people are never content. They're never satisfied with what they have and grateful for what they have. They always want more of what the other guy has. And that's where the problem comes in. Solomon was aware of that by saying, he's going to have, instead of 10 concubines, he's got 900 of them, which would drive me crazy, but the thing is, you go through life and we never seem to be grateful for what we've been blessed with, and yet if we look at each of ourselves in this room right now, there's someone out in the street that doesn't have a place to sleep tonight. We should be grateful that we have a roof over our heads, and that people, that's just learning to be content.
Okay.
God blessed us with having a roof over our heads, and some people don't have that.
All right, so
That's part of the message that I'm getting from this thing.
right, for those that couldn't hear Harley, I won't be able to remember every single aspect of what he said, but in short, it's that can the eye ever be satisfied with seeing? Can the ear ever be satisfied with hearing? Can our senses of taste and smell ever be satisfied the more we bring in? There's nothing that can satisfy our cravings. Physical possessions can't satisfy. And in the end, we end up thinking that we're missing out when all the while what we're really missing is the ability to be content because we probably have a whole lot more than someone else. And it's a pretty bad place to be in. I wish I could phrase it right, but Amy sometimes listens to some stand-up comedians, these clean comedians. They have a few of them on YouTube, and some of them that have cracked me up are these older guys that say when they were younger, they were taking notes on things they said to their kid. And so I'm taking these notes so that when you get into your 30s and 40s and go to the psychologist, I'll just hand it to you and say, here it is. Here's what I did. Here's what I said. And then you can leave me alone. Yeah, I messed you up. Here's how I did it. And I get a kick out of that because it's, how many in our victimized society, how often do we hear people say, if only I had this kind of a parent, if only I had been raised this way, if only my dad had trained me like Elon Musk's dad had trained him, then I'd be a billionaire by now. But do any of these things, any of these what ifs, do they have a hope of truly satisfying like we think they do?
No, it's not the issue. It's
Okay.
that focuses it on something else, and it takes it off of you. And the reality is, you got to put it on you. That has nothing to do with my happiness. I got everything I need right now, if I'm a Christian, to be content and happy. And if I'm not, then it's me. And the thing is, though, the average Joe can find comfort in that. When you're Solomon or a Michael Jordan, you can't play that card anymore because you can afford anything. You're at the top, and you're stranded. I mean, at least the poor guy can say, well, if I had more money, I'd be happy. And Solomon is like, that illusion's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, he strips away, he strips the blindfold off of us.
Yeah, I guess that's why we should sometimes feel sorry for the person who has reached the top, who's not godly, is that they're stuck. They don't have any illusions anymore about, oh, I just had this or that.
Right.
And you can see why some of them take their lives at that point.
Yeah.
Because it's been a big lie.
Mm-hmm. And in the end, this what-if game, all it serves to do is to become an excuse to keep us from our true purpose of pursuing a relationship with God. It's a lot easier to play a simple what-if. If only things outside of myself were in order, then I myself would be in order. And that's a lot easier than getting myself in order, getting myself straightened out.
So this same Solomon said in Proverbs Now I'm beginning to wonder if he wrote Proverbs after he wrote Ecclesiastes. I don't know, but he said in Proverbs, give me neither riches nor wealth. I mean, give me neither poverty nor riches.
Yeah, yeah. That's, yeah, the excess of riches make you proud in and of yourself. The extremes of poverty can tempt you to go and steal and do bad things and not rely on God, right? So both of those extremes, that's what the proverb is saying. We hope we don't fall in either of those extremes. Amy?
Back to what he was saying, at least Solomon could admit that it was all vanity, and so God used him mightily for us today.
That's right.
To teach us that lesson, because his word is complete and it gives us everything we need for life and godliness. And he uses Solomon to teach us a lot of these lessons. If we'll learn it with what we have now is more than enough. If we have Jesus, it's more than enough,
That's right. It's a great point, and that goes back to the whole purpose of the book and how it is an effective tool in our arsenal of faith. Why is it effective? Because we can go to people of the world who don't have God in their mind at all, who are striving in multiple different ways. Different people, different personalities are going to pursue different vain purposes. We're able to go to them, looking at what Solomon has done, and share with them, no, there's someone that was way more equipped to pursue this vanity than you. And here's the end result of it. Nothing. You're not going anywhere. It gives us that ability. Okay. So, Solomon didn't stop with pleasure. He says, look, I'm going to look at wisdom and folly. I'm going to look at these and madness and see what's better here. He is truly testing every single boundary that we have. He's going down every possible avenue to see, is there any way I can find a purpose outside of my relationship with God? And so what do we find when we look at wisdom and folly? Is one better than the other? What does Solomon say? Okay, in the end result, he says, well, both die, but does Solomon declare one superior to the other? Or are they the same? Verse 13, wisdom is better. He says wisdom excels folly, just like there's more gain in light than darkness. If we're all walking in a room, we would much rather have the light turned on than to be in the dark, even if we had nowhere to go. If you don't believe that, when everyone clears out of here and all the lights are turned off, just stay in this building and try to find your way around. I will guarantee you it's not fun. I've done that, thinking I'm just going to walk down this aisle because I'm closing up tonight and my kid forgot something. And after bumping into 2 or 3 things and getting big bruises on my legs, maybe I'll go back and turn the light on first. Then I'll find what I need and then go turn it off. Wisdom is way better than folly. But then, as Marilyn said, does that give us any contentment? Just knowing that wisdom is better than folly? Should that make us happy? Aha, we found the source of joy. We found the source of purpose. What does Solomon say about that? Right. We get our joy from there. Is Solomon content knowing wisdom is better than folly? No. Everyone dies. There's one event for everybody. So you could have been the biggest fool. You could have stumbled around and wasted every opportunity. You're going to die. You could have done everything the right way. You're going to die and be buried next to him. You're both going to become fertilizer for the next generation. What a joyful thought. So Solomon is depressed. He's in despair over this discovery. And so Solomon, well, we can go on and talk about rich and famous people. I think, let me go back a minute to a couple slides. I put a lot of photos in here that I found on a psychology website. Raise your hand if you recognize some of those people. I would think everyone recognizes some of those people. These are all comedians that you would think from all appearances, if you were to watch them, hoping that there's something clean you can watch of what they produce, when you watch them, you're going to think, oh, these guys must be a riot to live with. Can you imagine being their kid? You'd be laughing all the time. Be their spouse, you would wake up laughing. You'd be eating lunch with them laughing, go to bed laughing. It would be wonderful. All these people have admitted to suffering from very severe depression. And we're not talking about, before I found comedy, I suffered from severe depression. This is during the height of their fame, they were suffering from severe depression. Many of them tried to commit suicide multiple times. Some of them succeeded. Some didn't. So think of all the rich and famous people who are miserable. And I guess the question I'm left with, they're miserable. When you look at those people there, does their misery make any sense at all? Can you empathize with that? With the position they're in? To be so miserable and despairing? Yeah, we can read verse 17. So I hated life because what is done under the sun was grievous to me, for all is vanity and striving after the wind. I hated all my toil in which I toil under the sun, seeing I must leave it to a man that comes after me, and who knows whether he will be wise or a fool. Yet he'll be a master over all that I've toiled for and used my wisdom under the sun. This also is vanity. So I turned about and gave my heart up to despair.
I think that's a really great observation. If you take your house and say, this house is going to make me happy, your dream house, you make it a god, you're going to resent it. And I think that's the lesson I pull out of here is, man, don't take any human being and say, you have to make me happy. It's your job to make me happy, because you're making them like a god or a possession, or, man, when I get that dream car or whatever, or that salary, man, any earthly thing that you put your happiness into, you're going to end up hating it. You're going to resent it because it's going to let you down. And I think that's amazing what Solomon admits there. Everything I've built, I hated it. I looked at it, and I despised it, because I think it reminded him, it let him down.
Very good. I mean, you have, if we make things or pursuits our God, what happens to idols? Do they ever fulfill the needs of our heart? We're going to find out that it doesn't deliver on its promises. As a matter of fact, if I were to flip back to some of those comedians, some of the reasons they were severely depressed was because the very things they were putting their hope and trust in actually became burdens to them. Robin Williams, I think, was in immense debt. I mean, the magnitude of wealth and someone incredibly wealthy going into such debt. Michael Jackson, I think, died in debt. I don't think he killed himself. Wasn't much better how he died, but he died in debt. A guy who made so much money. I mean, you and I could work as hard as we want our whole lifetime. We probably wouldn't make as much as he made in a month. And it wasn't enough. We got a comment over here, Willie?
I don't know how many others are going through their closets right now and their drawers and things. I mean, I think a lot of us are. We get to the end of the holidays and we look around and we're like, there's so much stuff. And it affects our mental health. I look at it and I'm like, that's money gone from the year that's just now sitting here. And so you don't even have to have this extreme wealth, these extreme celebrities to feel that, of looking around going, what a waste, because I do it every January. I sit around and go, there's so much junk in this house. So you don't have to be Michael Jackson to end up that way.
And you don't have to answer this question, but has anyone ever found things years after purchasing them that you never even opened or used? That's a first world issue. Been there, done that. I found things. I can't say I found tons of stuff like that, but I found things I haven't done with what I thought I would. Got Arlene over here.
Thank you. A different pursuit, just something that happens every day now, is oftentimes our idol is our family. And people will let you down. And so if you're living your life vicariously through your children and they fall away because of that, they may have come to church every day, every time you were here. But again, if the children aren't accountable to something other than just you, they're going to lose their way, and there's going to be a lot of sadness there.
Okay. So it's not just things, it could be others that we make our gods. And a couple dangers with making others your God, even if it's a very good person. Maybe it's a child. That child gets sick. That child dies. How many people have you heard of going into despair because they've lost a child and they give up on life itself? That child they invest everything into, and then the child becomes a drug addict because they're used to everything being easy and being given to them. And it's like, I remember before I got married, I remember hearing a Christian man who was very disappointed in himself because his daughter had fallen away from the faith. And as he was coming back to reflect on it, he said, I took her to every softball game. I drove her across the country to softball game after softball game. That was their thing, and that was more important to them at that time than even going to church. And then he reflected back and said, yeah, I guess I taught her that that's more important than God. And she got the lesson, and she left. And he ends up in despair because of that. Right there, go ahead.
Okay.
You go ahead first.
Oh, sorry, I've got the microphone. I'll
Yeah.
hand it to you. One of the things with those people that you had up on the screen there, I think because I've listened to several podcasts, I've listened to some videos of people that talked to them right before they passed, they didn't know, and of course right after they commit suicides now when everybody comes out and everybody hands across America for these people. Yeah. But they were for years just everybody knew they were in despair, and they, especially Robin Williams specifically. And the reason why it was so, like, they couldn't come to terms with, like, they understood that nobody had sympathy for them because they were at the top, they had so much money, and that was one of the hardest parts for them, was that nobody has any sympathy. You have millions of dollars. Yeah. Go eat a go eat a hamburger, have a milkshake, and enjoy your life. What are you talking about? You're in despair. You have money, so
right.
Go have fun. But that's not the reality of the world they live in. The other thing I just want to mention, one time I was hired to be bodyguards for some random, like, just HR people, as they were going to tell oil-filled, like, vice presidents and presidents of departments that they were fired, that they were all being laid off. And it was like super secret. We were all armed, and we had to sneak in at like 3 a.m. because this was all going to be news to all of them. And they were terrified that people were going to go get a gun and come back and shoot the place up. And what's crazy is that the amount of anger and complete despair that somebody who's driving, a brand new Jaguar convertible to work that day, and then they're fired, turn in all your stuff. We have to escort them out of the building so they don't steal things, set things on fire, because that's happened the previous time. And to watch somebody, and the sad part is, it's the fact that they're stepping down to having to drive a Honda that's the hardest part for them. Yeah. It's the fact that now they're not making six figures, a month, and that's that's what it is. It's not just
Right.
just the money. It's that status.
It's bursting the bubble of their illusions that they were investing all themselves into, and that's the difficult part. Jan?
So when you touched on the daughter and the baseball games or whatever, softball games, we have to be so hyper aware of our influence, not just with our friends, but our families, the people who we are working with, even just our neighbors, everyone. And we're teaching lessons to them moment by moment by moment. And, you know, Jesus, we are reflectors of Jesus. And if we're not doing that in our purpose, that's our sole purpose in life. Solomon was a terrible influence.
Yeah.
He gave horrible example there for his life. We need to turn that around and go a different route. And so that's what we need to take away from this, is how can we reflect the best of Jesus that we can possibly reflect in our lives.
It's very good. Very good. Appreciate that, Jan. Okay. All right, so Solomon does offer us a glimpse out of the gate of despair. kind of, he's in the house of despair, and he looks out the window and he can see something that's maybe can help him out. What is that? It's near the end of this chapter. What is the glimpse of hope, the ray of sunshine that Solomon's offering us here? I say it's a glimpse because it's not the whole thing. it's okay. So part of it goes back to what Hartley said. It's why do we keep wishing we had more? Stop for a moment. Enjoy what you have in front of you. If you're honoring God, God will give you the ability to enjoy the things He's blessed you with. If you don't honor God, what did Solomon notice happens in life? You're collecting all these great things, getting the huge bank account so that you can dump it to the person that God designates. But it won't be you. You're just storing up all the nuts in the tree, and then you're going to die. And someone else gets to eat them.
You're like a drone. You're just gathering pollen. You're just this mindless drone out there. And I think he'd make a great point. He reminds us that, yeah, everyone gets physical blessings. God loves everyone. Rain comes upon everyone. But there's something else that a lot of people forget. I might get this stuff. That doesn't mean that I'm going to have the ability to enjoy it and appreciate it. And a lot of people in the world might argue with us on this point. Go ahead and argue, but without God as your center, you're not going to enjoy even the physical blessings that you're getting. And I think that's what he hammers.
That's right.
He hammers home there.
Yep. Without God at the center of your life, you can't even enjoy all the pursuits you've had. That's right. Ungrateful whiner. Okay. What I'd like to do is hopefully we'll have a little time to discuss this. These are short video clips. So Mike, if you would, click on the first video clip. This is Sam Harris explaining the purpose of life. And then, right after that, Mike, go immediately to the next one, which is Richard Dawkins trying to do the same thing. And then I want to come back to you guys and say, how does Ecclesiastes help us with this? To answer this. Because this is the kind of stuff that if you're not getting right now, I guarantee you, your children or grandchildren are getting. That's what they're hearing. Hopefully it'll work. It's working on the back. Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm going to have you stop this at a certain point, Mike, so we'll stop it and then go to the next one after he speaks for a little bit. I don't know if you can get the audio working. I'll give you a quick synopsis of what Sam Harris says. He says it a bit more eloquently than I can, and by eloquently I mean he'll take you in circles a little bit before you realize you're spinning, okay? And you guys keep working on the sound there, but what he says is that asking somebody what the purpose of life is a really, actually destructive question. Because that usually is asked by people who are religious, and they're trying to say, basically, unless you can carry your memories from life with you, the memories of things you've done, to something after death, then it's all useless. And so he says, is that how we really go through life? I mean, will we not consider a good movie much better than a bad movie? There's better purpose in a good movie than a bad movie because you can actually enjoy the good movie and the bad movie you don't. He says, stop looking at what happens after death because that takes away from your ability to enjoy what's happening right now. Look at what's happening now.
Do you want me to play it?
We'll have to skip over this one.
In spiritual experiences you think you may yet have, because I understand you don't make claims.
Skip to the next one.
Yeah, we'll go to the next one here.
What's the name of the next one?
Well, it's Richard Dawkins. I don't know are you able to do it, Mike? You think? What's that? Okay. So bottom line is, what he says is, the purpose of life, enjoy each individual moment. Don't worry what happens after the grave. Nobody can prove anything about that to you anyway. That doesn't give you a purpose in life. Don't neglect enjoying holding that baby in front of you right now. That's what life's all about.
It's like 3 minutes and 14 seconds.
Yeah, it's too long. We only have about a minute left. Okay, so Richard Dawkins, he has a different take. He's like, what's the purpose of life? Well, scientifically speaking, the purpose of life is to propagate your DNA. That's the whole purpose of life. And you want something a little bit beyond that? Well, here's a great answer. Maybe life has no meaning at all. He says all that's with a smile. But it's not something to despair about because each of you has your own individual purpose. You get to make your purpose. You get to pursue what you want to pursue. And that's what makes life great. He said, just like a rock doesn't necessarily have a purpose, it's just there. A mountain is just there. We just find life there. So you got a little bit of a brain, you can make it mean whatever you want it to. And he smiles and says, next question. How does Ecclesiastes help us to... I apologize for the audio. I didn't prep these guys ahead of time. I just kind of laid it on them the last minute. But how does Ecclesiastes help us answer things like this? And by the way, when Sam Harris spoke, there was an audience behind him. They were clapping loudly. They were ecstatic with his answer. Okay, so what Amy's saying is they're acknowledging exactly what Solomon said. There really is no purpose and no meaning. They're being evasive. They're evading the real question. To Sam Harris, we could ask back to him, okay, Sam, if I added up all the experiences I had in life and was living in the moment every second, what was it all about? He'd say, stop asking that question. That's what he would say. Stop asking that question. Now you're ruining everything. Last statement back here. Right back. Right there. Sorry, I don't know your name there.
I always ask people, where, I love politics, where do rights to send from? And they can never give you a really good answer. To these people, I would say, well, what if my purpose in life is to, racially divide people or oppress people? Why is that any worse than anybody else? I mean, my morals who says that my morals aren't, just as good as yours? From where do our rights descend? If our rights descend from men, then what Stalin did was okay. What Hitler did was okay because, their ideas, they became popular, and
that was their purpose.
That was their purpose. Why not? Why not that? I discussed with you the other night that 1 John 2:14 through 16 is sort of a shorthand, sort of the cliff notes for Ecclesiastes. All of this passes away.
Right.
I was also thinking when you're talking about pleasures, food doesn't make you happy. There are a lot of people that think food will make you happy.
Right.
It only makes you happy for a minute or two.
That's right.
It can make you very happy for a minute or two.
It can make you happy for a moment, like a kid on Halloween night, and then
I had
really
some
miserable
cake.
later.
I had some cake today that was really good, but in the end, doesn't.
Yeah, and to your point of what if my purpose is, becoming dictator of a nation and destroying a whole group of people, the answer of these two men would be, well, obviously that's ridiculous. What a stupid statement, and they would move on.
But why is it
They have
stupid?
nothing because they're going to be evasive. They don't have an answer. That's the point. They have no answers. All right, thank you, everyone.
Go ahead and open your psalm books if you have them. They'll be on the screen above as well. We're going to begin with Be Unto Your Name. No, it's not. Know me. We
Worthy
143. I will wake the dawn with praises. No, so dawn is sun.